Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the problem valid parenthesis string. So what the question says is that given a string S containing only three types of characters, the opening bracket, the closing bracket, and the star, return true if S is valid. The following rules define a valid string. Any left parentheses may have a corresponding right parentheses. Any right parentheses must have a corresponding left parentheses. Left parentheses must go before the corresponding right parentheses, and star could be treated as a single right parentheses or a single left parentheses or an empty string. Okay. So this is the question, guys. And if you solve the problem on balanced parentheses that we use in stacks, it's pretty much similar to that with just one variation of that star getting included in this. And this problem is also going to be solved using stacks only. So let's start. I have a few examples over here noted down. Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do with these. Okay, so let's take this example first. Now, as you know, in balanced parentheses, what happens is that if you have an opening bracket and a closing bracket corresponding to it, right? So these gets balanced out, and you can just, this is called a balanced string because then you can pop these to get out together, right? So this is what a balanced parentheses is. Now, in this case, you already have one opening bracket and one closing bracket. So they both are going to balance out each other. But what the star over here is, right? So it over here, it's mentioned that the star could be, treated as a right parentheses, left parentheses, or an empty string. So in this case, what we can do is, if we treat this star as an empty string over here, then we can just, we get an empty string. We can just remove this, and we'll get two opening and closing parentheses balancing each other out. In this case, you see, we have an opening parenthesis, we have a star, we have two closing parentheses. Right. Now, what we can do is we can treat this star as an opening parentheses. If we treat this as an opening parentheses, what will happen is, let's do this here. When we have this treat as an opening parentheses, these two will balance each other out, and the last two are going to balance each other out. So this becomes a balanced string. Okay. Now, in this case, these two are going to balance each other out. But this star, even if it's treated as a right parentheses, or a left parentheses, or an empty string, it's not going to balance out this string because it says over here that any right parentheses must have a corresponding left parentheses before it, right? So there should be a left parentheses over here to balance this string out. But if since there isn't, it's not going to balance it out. And the last case over here, as you can see, we have three stars, right? And we have two opening parentheses and one closing parentheses. So these two closing parentheses are going to balance each other out, but this is not going to get balanced by any of these three stars. Okay, so this is again not a balanced string. Now, how are we going to solve this problem? Now we're going to solve this problem using stacks only. For this case, we're going to use two stacks. We're going to have a left stack to signify the left parentheses and a star stack, keeping in track all the stars. So what we'll do is initially we'll just run a loop and place all the left parentheses and stars in these arrays. So in this case, let's take a genuine case like this one, the second case. And in this case, when we loop through it, we'll store the indexes in this. And you'll understand why I'm storing the indexes in just a minute. So when we store the indexes over here, that we have an index 1 stored here, and this index 0 stored in the left, and index 1 stored in the star. When we go to this closing parenthesis, we'll check if there is any value in left. It means that this closing parentheses can be balanced out with an opening parentheses, right? So we can just pop the opening parentheses out from here, and we can just balance it out with this value. And this star can be treated as an empty string. So if your left array is empty, which means your case is true. So this is a valid string, right? Now in this case, let's do it for this case now. We have an opening parenthesis over here. We'll store it over here. We have a star at index 1, and we have two closing parentheses. Now, for when we come to this closing parentheses, we can check that there is an opening parentheses over here. So we can just pop it out, and we can balance this string out, right? And now, when we come to this closing parenthesis, we see that there is nothing present in left. If when there's nothing present in left, we'll then jump to the star array and check if there is any value present in the star array. Since there is a star present, we can just treat it as an opening parenthesis, and we can balance it out with the closing parenthesis and pop this out. and we'll get this as a balanced string as well, right? Now, in this case, in the third case, now in the third case, what we'll do is firstly we'll treat this as a closing parenthesis. Now, since this closing parenthesis cannot be balanced out by anything, we'll just return a complete false over here. Because if this is not going to get balanced, then it doesn't matter if anything ahead of it is getting balanced. We'll just return a false straight over there. Now let's jump to the last example. Over here, we'll store the indexes like this, 0, 1, and 2 for the stars, and 3 and 4 for the opening parentheses. Now, you'll understand. Now watch this example closely, because this is going to explain you why we're storing the indexes. Now, when we reach the very last element of the array and of the string, we see that we can just balance this out with the element present in the left array, and we can just pop it out over here, right? Now, since it's balanced out, we'll first now check if there is any element present in left. In this case, we have one element, one opening parentheses with an index present in left. Now, what we need to do is we need to reverse check the left array. Okay, now we were going from straight ahead, right? We were now going like this manner, but now we need to go from this manner. Okay, and we'll need to check how many opening parentheses are present in the left array now. Since there's only one opening parenthesis present, we can try and balance it out with stars present for us, right? But the only way it can get balanced out if there's a star ahead of it. Now the stars behind it, it can be treated as a left parentheses only, opening parentheses only. They can't be treated. They can be treated as opening or closing parentheses or empty string, but it doesn't matter because it won't balance out this opening parentheses in any case. It needs a opening parenthesis. It needs a star ahead of it, and a star with an index ahead of it, right, to balance it out. In this case, if we check, we have a 3 over here as an index, and all the stars, the very last value of star we have in our string has an index of 2, which means that even if I try to take a star out and try to balance it out with an opening parentheses, a closing parentheses, or empty string, it's not going to balance out this string over here with an index 3. Okay, that's why. And if this is not going to balance it out, no other value, no other star with an index is going to balance it out, because all the other indexes are going to be less than it, right? So what you need to do in this case, you just need to check if once we're done with all the elements in the string, we just need to check if there is any opening parentheses left in the array. If there are opening parentheses left, you need to check if there are star. You need to check the very last element, from the very last element to the first element. You need to do a reverse checking over here from right to left in the array. And when you do a right to left check, you need to check the very last element of the opening parentheses array with the star array over here, and you need to check if the left array has if the star array has the very last element greater than the index value of the left array, the very last element of the left array. Okay, what I mean by that is you just need to check if there is any star whose index is greater than 3 over here. If there's a star with an index greater than 4, which means that there is a star over here, which means that I can balance this left out. And if I can balance this left out, it's going to be an empty. This left is going to get empty now. We can just pop this 3 and 4 out, right? And we're gonna get these two guys balanced. And even if we have 3 stars left, we can just treat them as empty strings, and we'll have a valid string in our case. But since we don't have that, we can't treat it as an empty string, and we can't balance it out. Okay, I hope you guys understood what I tried to explain over here. So I think it will be much more clearer after I code this out. So let's just code it out right now. Okay, so to code this out, let's do it. Now, what we'll do is firstly, we'll maintain 2 arrays, star and left. Firstly, we're going to loop through the array. Okay, now we'll check if I is equal to the opening parentheses. Is equal to the opening parentheses. We'll store it in the left array. We'll store its index in the left array. Else, if I is equal to the closing, if it's equal to the star, let's do it star first. We'll store it in the star array. Star dot append I. Yeah. Or now we need to check if I is equal to the closing parentheses. If it's equal to the closing parentheses, is we'll check if if left is present. If left is present, we can just pop the element out of left like this. And else if left is not, if in our case, if left is empty, we can just check if star has some values, right? If star has some values, you can still pop it out from with star, right? And we can just, else if that is not the case, we can just return a false. Now, once this is done, now we have all the values stored in an array, and we have popped the given values out as well. So let's just test this out with one example. What we had, like we had 3 stars, 2 opening brackets, and 1 closing bracket, right? In this case, we're storing left and star, right? So star, in our case, first 3 stars are going to get, we're going to go loop it out. When we loop it out, we see that we have 3 stars. We're going to append 0, 1, and 2 as our indexes over here. 0, 1, and 2 as our indexes over here. Then we're going to store 3 as our index over here when we come to this element. Again, we'll store 4. And when we come to the very last element, this one, we'll check if there is an element present in left. If there is present in left, we'll just pop left out like this, right? And if there was nothing present, let's say we had just this, what we could have still done is we can just pop, and left was empty. We could have just popped this, closing parentheses with the stars present ahead of it, and we could have just popped it out, right? And in this case, if you just think about it, if we had something like this and we had a star over here, if the question was something like this, right? We would have come over here, we would have checked if left was empty. Yes, left was empty. Even right star was empty. And then we would have just returned a false, because even if there is a star present ahead of it, it's not going to balance it out, because if we have openings back, even if it's this, even if you have this, it's not going to balance it out. If this is not going to balance it out, nor is an empty string going to balance it out. So it will just return a false in this case. Okay. Now what we do is, after we have that, after we've done this, okay, let's just bring that example back. Yeah. Now, after we've done this, right, what we'll do is now we'll check in a reverse manner, right? Since we have a value in left over here, what we'll do is we'll check while left is not empty. Okay. While left is not empty, we'll check if, first we'll check if star is empty or not. If star is empty, we'll just return a false over here, because we need at least something in the star value to make it, balance it out. But if star is also empty, we can just return a false in this case, right? Now, since star is empty, we can just return a false. If star is empty, we return a false. But if star is not empty, what we'll do is we'll check if the very last element in our array of left is greater than the very last element of star is lesser than the very last element of star. If this is the case, what we'll do is we'll just pop this out, left.pop, and we'll do a star.pop, right? We'll just do this. Let me just explain it here. Okay, what we'll do here is we'll just pop it out, right? What we'll see is if we have a star over here, right, as I was explaining, and we have a 4 over here, right, we can see that the star -1 is greater than 3, which means that if we convert this into a closing parentheses, we can balance this out, which means that we can just pop these two elements out over here. Okay. And in this case, if these two get balanced out, we'll just have 3 stars left. And since this is going to get balanced out, we'll just come out of the loop and we'll just check. And we'll just check if this is the case, and we'll just return a true over here. Okay. But if that's not the case, if we don't have anything over here remotely resembling that, we can just do an else return false over here. And this will solve our problem. Because if we have a star over here and we don't have anything to balance it out, we can't go ahead. As I told you, we need a star with an index value greater than our left's index value. But in this case, we don't have that, which means that even the stars present before it, they're not going to balance it out. So we just need to return it. We just need to return a false in this case. Okay, so this is how you solve the problem, guys. Let's run the code. Okay, we're getting an error over here. So why are we getting this error? Uh, okay, yeah. So this should be like this. If star is empty, otherwise, what we'll do is we'll check over here. Right now, let's run this now. Okay, we're still getting the error. So why are we doing this now? Uh, okay, so this should be S of I. All of this should be S of I. We're not checking with the indexes over here, right? All should be S of I. Okay, let's run this. Yeah, it's running now. Let's submit it. Yeah, it's submitted, guys. So, yeah, guys, this is how you solve the problem. And if you like the video, do like, share, and subscribe. Do follow more. Do write down in the comments what you guys would want next in the channel in terms of lead code problems or any podcast episodes. Do check out my podcast as well. I I really hope you guys learn a lot from this video. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks.